In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a podcast interview. And what better way to show you through a podcast interview breakdown with the famous Gary Vaynerchuk and Mark Zuckerberg. Let me know in the comments below if you catch this huge interview mistake that you should always avoid making. Let's go.
Because I have so many very selfish questions for Mark about this Web3 world that I'm going to be selfish with my limited time with him. So Mark, first of all, it's good to see you, and how are you?
Selfish questions aren't bad. I do this all the time because I always say it's the ABC of interviewing. Always be curious. So if you're just asking selfish questions, he's not the only one who has these questions too. So don't be afraid to be a little selfish and ask those type of questions, because chances are somebody else is wondering. So it's okay.
It's good to see you too. It's it's been a while since we've done something like this, but I'm glad to get a chance to do it. There's a lot of exciting stuff going on right now. So, and the reason why we come to you is because you do ask good questions. So let's go for it. I'm curious what you got for me.
So Mark, I think what's really funny in the meta, pun intended, it's NFT NYC right now, and I was saying to AJ, Kevin Rose, a bunch of the old Web 2.0 friends, how much this feels like the early South by Southwest days. And obviously, one of the first times we sat down was after your keynote at South by, just jamming, talking about the space. And I remember the conversation vividly because I have a solid memory, and because a lot of the things we talked about where this was all going was the topic, and many of these things played out. As somebody that I feel has always had a disproportionate understanding of communication, consumer, human behavior, give me your first hot take. I know you've had this big, announcement the other day. What is your just kind of macro thesis of the Web3 place we're going? Whether it's the Metaverse, the NFT stuff, like what are we on the precipice of, and how similar is it to the time where right before Facebook was launched?
Great question. But before that, I would have asked, the very first question is, what exactly is it in layman's terms? Because he's talking about Web 3.0, the Metaverse. Not everybody knows what it is, what we can expect, or like how it even started, or how technology is evolving. So just starting out with what is Web 3.0, what is it in layman's terms? And then the next question is, can you explain what the Metaverse is and its possibilities and its limitations?
Yeah, so the Metaverse to me today feels like the next frontier in social connection, in much the same way that social networking did when I was getting started back in 2004. And that's a big reason why we wanted to change the brand of the company, is that today I think most people think about us as a social media company. But in our DNA, we're a technology company that builds all kinds of different technology to help people connect and tries to advance human connection. And of course, social media is one important part of that. But I think increasingly it's going to be about building platforms and experiences that deliver the sense of presence, like you're right there with another person. So there's, of course, all the virtual and augmented reality parts of that, and there's the hardware, and I'm really excited about that. The work that we've been, we've been working on that for 7 years now at this point, so that's making a lot of progress. But I think some of the experiences are starting to come together too. So we've started to release Horizon and workrooms and some of these experiences where you can feel like you're present with someone in a place. It's just pretty crazy to see how that's taking off. And it's not just games. Games I think is the natural starting point, but beyond that, we're starting to see at this point that social interaction and just hanging out is starting to become the biggest way that people spend time on these platforms. That kind of makes sense and fits with my
Mark,
experience so far.
When you say these platforms, are you speaking specifically in the behavior you're seeing of people in Oculus?
Yeah.
Break that. Let's actually go right there, because you said something in there, and I hope the audience is listening. 7 years, right? And I remember like yesterday, you acquiring Meta acquiring Oculus.
Oh, always tough to know how to refer to it in the past.
Yeah, I'm gonna use both, so stick with me. The Oculus purchase was really interesting because the Instagram purchase, which I was really kind of caught up in because of some of the content I was making, the attempt on Snap, all of those made a ton of sense because you were executing on the thing that I've always thought you had, which is where's the current attention? How do we play within that space? The Oculus one was weird for me because I was like, ooh, that's far away. Why did he do that? 7 years in Metaverse, people are just now starting to kind of get going. What was the thinking of that? Like, why'd you do that?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is just that, we spend most of our days building social apps that you use on a little phone, right? And, as powerful as that is, you have your phone with you all the time. It's also pretty limiting, right? You're not delivering an experience where you can really feel like you're with another person. And in a lot of ways, that's sort of the ultimate dream of building these digital social experiences, is actually being able to make it so that people can feel like they're there together and doing something together and kind of collaborating. And just no technology that we have today can deliver that. So, we've seen this progression where, when I started the company, it was, people primarily, the internet was primarily about text, right? So people type text into a computer. Then we got phones that had cameras. So the internet became a lot more visual and mobile. And over the last few years, internet connections have gotten a lot better for everyone. So now video is really the primary way that we share experiences. So you have this progression from text to photos to videos. Connection and expressing ourselves keeps on getting more natural and immersive, but that's not the end of the line, right? There's going to be something after video, and it's going to be much more immersive, and it's going to be something that we can do throughout the day. So you'll have virtual reality for when you want to go into a really immersive zone. You'll have augmented reality to have holograms. So you can imagine a version of this conversation, 3 or 5 years from now, where instead of doing this, over video, you're a hologram here in my living room, or I'm a hologram in your living room.
So I don't know if you saw it, like Mark was starting to really get into the meat of what he was talking about. And then Gary interrupted him. But if you've watched any Gary Vee interview, he does tend to interrupt a lot. I am not, but he's Gary Vee. So who am I to say anything? But that's the thing. I would have keep letting him go because he was getting on a roll about like VR glasses and things like that. I would have asked him, like, what do you think the reaction to the public is going to be when they have a hologram? Like if I was interviewing either Mark or Gary, by the way, they are both on my master list. So if they're watching or one of their team members is watching, I'm going to put my email right there to reach out to me. But what are people's reactions going to be when you've got a damn hologram, or like when we're just sitting here, it's like as a hologram of Gary or a hologram of Mark about to pop up? Is that what he's talking about? And Gary's, even if you follow Gary's content, he talks about contact lenses. So it'd be really interesting to know if we're that far ahead or if we're getting to that point as well.
I've watched you talk in the past, and I know how I communicate this because it's always so challenging. Is your intuition that it is 3 to 5 years from now, that is like that the tech between 5G, which was an important step, between some of the stuff you're doing and other companies and entrepreneurs are doing, do you think we can actually, I saw something I think in my feed where you were fencing with somebody as a part of the announcement. Yeah. Which looked wild because it was on.
So I'm going to interrupt Gary real quick. So he mentioned 5G as well. So for people who don't know, like I have no idea. I've heard so many things, and then again, and I've just seen headlines about 5G. But I would have asked either one of them to explain if they know how 5G, Web3, and the Metaverse and this augmented reality, does it all correlate together?
It's happening. Is that? Do you think 3 to 5 is a solid guess? Is that optimistic?
Yeah,
talk to me about that.
So I think you want to break it down to, there's the virtual reality side and the...
God, I hate to interrupt again, but it's like, how are they going to roll it out? That's what I would ask too, is how are you going to roll something like this out to the public? Because what you're talking about now doesn't even seem possible. And these are new things that we haven't seen or heard of yet. So it's like, how are you going to roll this out to the public? Are you going to have a runway? Are you going to ease people in, or are we just going to turn it on one day? Because as of the recording in this video, if you log in to Facebook or Instagram, it says Instagram Meta, Facebook Meta. So are we just going to, is the technology just going to show up, or how are they going to, how are they going to introduce it to the public?
VR is here, right? I think Quest was really the form factor that was necessary to make it mainstream. Quest 2, I think, was a meaningful step beyond that, and is kind of the first mainstream hit that we've had. So many millions of them.
I don't know what you're allowed to share or not. So don't feel comfortable telling me you can't. Is there public? Like, I'm just trying to learn how much.
We don't have a public number yet, but it's but it is. What I can say is it's many millions, and it's multiple times more than Quest 1, which was
it feels that way.
We needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll keep on improving, and we'll keep on shipping new versions of that. So there are a lot of great experiences there, and it's been really cool to see the use cases there broaden out from games to social to now having things around fitness. Right.
There's a lot of that caught my radar, that there was a lot more people paying for fitness apps in Quest than I had any clue of.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, think about it. I mean, you can, it's kind of like the Peloton model where It's but instead of having a bike or a treadmill, you just have your $300 headset. You can take it with you anywhere you want. You can do boxing or dancing or different kinds of cardio. It's pretty awesome. So I think that'll go for a while and get extended a lot. So there are all these different use cases in VR. When you're talking about the fencing video that I showed with Lee Kiefer in the hologram, that you're going to need augmented reality glasses, and that's a harder problem because first you're inventing a completely new optical stack, right? So you're not just using normal screens and kind of building an architecture around that, which is how virtual reality has sort of worked to date. You need to design a projector and a set of waveguides so that way you can have glasses that look normal, you can see through them. So there's a lot of interesting science and engineering there. But for augmented reality, if you're going to wear it throughout the day, it's just a lot more important that the form factor is like normal looking glasses, right? I mean, virtual reality.
Mark, do you think, I'm sorry to interrupt, do you think by the time it hits scale that there's a chance that this is a contact lens game, not a cumbersome overlay like a glasses or a thick, like how?
I knew Gary was going to ask this. I've heard him mention it before, but he also interrupted him right when he was getting to the good part. He was talking about like the technology, augmented reality versus virtual reality. And that's something I would ask too, but he already answered it. But it's like, who works on this? Where in Facebook is this stuff developed? Are there just a bunch of scientists and engineers just in the basement figuring out these small projectors and like soldering these microchips? Like how in the world, who do you hire for something like this? Like, do you go off of Upwork or Craigslist? Like who is putting this together and how? All right, that does it for part 1 of this video. There'll be more to come, don't you worry. But before you go, the goal of this channel is to help you grow your network and your net worth with video podcasting. So if you're a startup entrepreneur or business owner and you have a podcast or you're thinking about starting a podcast, this free gift is going to get you started. It's a list of the top 25 podcast interview questions that will make you sound like a pro so you can become the authority in your niche. The link for that is in the description. Also, to watch part 2 of this podcast interview breakdown, click right here, and we'll see you next time.